Good morning to everyone. Let us introduce our project work, which is about electricity system of South Africa. Our objective is to present the current situation of this key sector in one of the faster developing countries. In order to describe the electricity sector of South Africa, we will start from proved natural reserves to get to the final part of the supply chain, the customer dispatchment. In the middle, we will pass through the market structure with all its players, and finally we will also have an outlook on the future scenarios based on policies and national strategies. Let's have a general view on South Africa economy and energy sector. As we know, it is one of the so-called BRICS countries. The most abundant energy resource of the country is coal, which covers almost the 75% of the national total primary energy supply, while oil and gas play an almost negligible role. This nation remedies its scarcity of oil and gas by importing them and producing steam fuels in the coal-to-liquid plant Sesol Secunda, the largest in the world, and the gas-to-liquid plant of Mossel Bay. Moreover, South Africa is the only African country with a nuclear power plant located in Kerberg and with a nominal power of 1.86 gigawatt, thanks to its large uranium reserves. The renewable contribution is still low, also taking into account that in the biofuels and waste data is included the amount of wood fuels and charcoal used in rural cooking. In data collection phase, we mainly consider the International Energy Agency research and government data, which we compared with other independent databases, such as the International Renewable Energy Agency, in order to achieve a certain transparency over data. Then we can obtain these remarkable parameters by making simple calculations. As we can see, the total primary energy supply is comparable to the Italian one, while the renewable primary energy share remains still low. But it's the third parameter which totally captures our attention. The electric penetration in South Africa is even higher than in Germany. How this possible? Numerically speaking, we find that German total primary energy supply doubles the South African one, and the greatest part of South African coal primary energy is exploited for the electric production. Going deeper, we can observe that Germany has a really high demand for non-electric energy due to a developed transport system, a complex seasonal heating, and an EV industry. These aspects are less significant in Africa. So while Germany has a high demand for non-electric energy, South Africa has an higher electric penetration because its main energy source is commonly used for power production. From now on, we'll focus on electricity system, considering its critical issues and development prospects. As we can see, South Africa appears to have no capacity problems because its installed capacity is bigger than its peak demand, even if the margin isn't very large. Unfortunately, a noticeable part of this installed capacity is not always operative due to maintenance and many other problems. Moreover, one of the biggest concerns in the country is the weakness of national electricity grid, which often ignites the political debate. The lackness of a reliable system can significantly hamper the industrial sector, and it generally has negative effects on the economy of the country. South Africa imports a small amount of electricity from Mozambique, but it mainly exports electricity to SAPP countries. The Southern Africa Power Pool, or SAPP, is a young electricity market formed by 13 countries and still under development. It has assumed the European model over the years. Nowadays, it is composed by bilateral contracts through which long-term demand and supply are balanced, day-ahead market based on auction mechanism, intraday market, which is a continuous market where trades takes place until 1 hour before delivery and prices are set according to first come, first served principle, and forward physical market, for future deliveries according to given contract specifications. Before this configuration, the Southern Africa Power Pool was based also on the short-term energy market, where we found a particular kind of bilateral contracts for the middle short-term run, gradually substituted by long-term and forward physical markets. Moreover, SAPP allows physical delivery and relies on market splitting to manage the congestion issues. Despite belonging to an international market, the South African electricity system should be still analyzed from a national perspective. The major player in South Africa's electricity system is Eskom, a public utility company entirely owned by the state and which acts in a vertically integrated monopoly because it's at the same time generator, system operator, owner and controller of the national electricity grid. However, national markets regulated by NERSA since 2006 thanks to Electricity Regulation Act. NERSA also regulates piped gas and oil pipelines. Eskom is by far the main electricity generator. It supplies 94% of South Africa electricity, while the remaining 6% is supplied by municipal power stations and the private sector. Municipalities have the right to manage its energy supply as provided by the Constitution, while independent power production is mainly represented by simple rooftop solar panels or by private power plants. Now, if we put ourselves in the shoes of a common South Africa customer, we'll have basically two options. We can purchase electricity directly from Eskom, or we can rely on local municipalities. On the other hand, municipalities have again two options. They can buy electricity from Eskom in order to resell it, or produce their own electricity. So we see that, at the end of the day, in most of the cases, a customer purchases electricity produced by the monopolist. In the transmission grid owned by Eskom, we can also find electricity injected from independent power producers and the share imported, especially from Mozambique. There are surely many issues in this vertically integrated monopoly. First of all, Eskom has a debt of over $30 billion, which is still increasing. So the agency had to increase the electricity price and many customers complain they cannot afford the new prices. However, the most severe problem in South Africa's electricity system is the frequent occurrence of blackouts. Due to the continuous growth in the number of customers, the inactivity of many failed power plants at a national grid, we cannot properly face the peak demand. So Eskom partial solutions to this severe situation is the load shedding, which is the reduction of load from power system to relieve stress on the electrical grid when it's dangerously overloaded. By this way, Eskom is still able to prevent a total blackout, gradually removing less important loads but guaranteeing priority users such as hospitals. We can argue for a long time whether this operation is a change in electricity demand or supply, but we know it's only a temporary solution which don't solve a problem caused by a wrong management of electricity system in the past decades. Of course, this kind of extreme solution prevents serious damages to the network, but also has generated many protests in the country. Despite some mistakes, South Africa has defined policy reforms to improve its energy sector. First of all, in 1998 it has decided to promote economic development, manage environmental and health impacts of energy use in South Africa, too dependent on coal, and reform the governance of the sector. Then it started to incentive renewable energy production and it founded NERSA, the National Energy Regulator we already talked about. Moreover, South Africa coal reserves are mainly located in the northeastern regions of the country, so it's difficult to supply energy to the populous southern coastal areas. Then the government decided to build a nuclear power plant in Cape near Cape Town to better supply the southern region. Furthermore, South Africa has regulated the nuclear and biofuel sectors and it also incentives independent power producers to build new green power systems. Many goals set by this nation have not been achieved yet, but South Africa continues to set new policies with ambitious targets. We consider some of the most significant among them. In 2011, the government promulgated the Integrated Resource Plan 2010-2030 to forecast demand profile for electricity until 2030 and detailed the best energy mix to satisfy it. Then we have the draft post 2015 National Energy Efficiency Strategy 2015-2030, promulgated in 2016, which promotes multiple ways to improve energy efficiency, not only by increasing power system performance, but also bettering the efficiency of lighting systems, vehicles and air conditioning of buildings. Moreover, the South Africa's Low Emission Development Strategy 2050 defines the procedures each economic sector should implement to reduce emissions up to 2050 horizon and accomplish a low-carbon development. Regarding to the development prospects, the International Energy Agency has analyzed the South Africa electricity generation by technology in two scenarios. In the first one, Stated Policy Scenario 2010-2030, we see a remarkable reduction of energy produced by coal, while renewable energy share will increase more than tenfold in 20 years from 2020 to 2030. In the second scenario, Africa Case 2010-2030, we see an even better situation. Energy produced by coal will drop even to a third of 2010 production in 30 years, while wind and solar energy share would increase more intensively than in previous case. While in both scenarios the hydropower generation would remain almost constant due to the hydro sector saturation, nuclear energy production would roughly double up, especially in Africa Case. It will be possible by renewing Keiberg power plant and building small modular reactors. This last scenario also includes the improving of transmission and distribution systems through the expansion of electricity grid, the construction of many microgrids, and standalone systems. In conclusion, we have seen South Africa electricity system is too dependent on coal-fired power plants, whose polluting fuel is very abundant in the country. We have also described the critical issues of its vertically integrated monopoly. But thanks to the will of South Africa people to free themselves from coal by focusing on renewables and to liberalize the market, all of this could change for the better in the coming years. We know this country has experienced a really fast development, but the best has yet to come. After all, as Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. Thanks for your attention.